Just what does it mean to come back here and be able to play or just ask an opponent tonight?
Yeah, AZ was good to me, but I'm way happier where I'm at now. It was good to see people. It was fun to play in front of some fans. But for me, I'm way happier in Indiana.
Something cracked in Phoenix. Not the rim or the backboard, but the Fever's nerve. A 95-60 beating looks ugly on a scoreboard. Yet the story behind it stings more. The ball felt heavy. Passes floated. Shot selection slid from disciplined to desperate. Phoenix did not just outscore Indiana. They seized tone, tempo, and mood. In that storm, one player kept pulling the group toward a standard, Sophie Cunningham. Her box score reads 18, but the number that mattered was her heartbeat. It never sped up. It never quit. Then the buzzer faded and the real noise began. Bonner basked. The Mercury celebrated. Words flew. Clips went viral. And Sophie opened a microphone to talk about something simple that cuts through the drama. Professional courtesy. The text that never came. That is where this night flips from highlights to values. Because the difference between theater and team is smaller than a highlight package and larger than a season. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Ready to go behind the scoreline. Let's dig in.
This game meant just as much to Sophie Cunningham as it did to the Indiana Fever when DeWanna Bonner made her return. The only difference is nobody on the Indiana Fever had Sophie Cunningham's back this time around. Sophie Cunningham was the only player trying hard. The only player giving effort, play in and play out. The only player getting into it with Alyssa Thomas, getting into it with DeWanna Bonner, getting into it with Kalia Copper, while everybody else just mailed it in. This game was embarrassing, folks.
Before the first timeout, you could sense it. Indiana's first steps were tentative. The first pass arrived a beat late. Cutters dove without timing, so the handler saw jerseys, not windows. Phoenix walked Indiana into crowded lanes, then jumped the next pass. The Fever tried to answer with pace, but their pace lacked purpose. Misses at the rim turned into rushed threes. Rushed threes turned into long rebounds. Long rebounds turned into runouts that lifted the crowd and lowered Indiana's confidence. This was not a cold start yet chalk up to bad luck. It was a rhythm breakdown. Phoenix tightened the screws by shading strong side and daring the weak side to read and react. Too often, the read was slow and the reaction slower. That's how a first quarter becomes a slope. You do not full, you slide. And once you start sliding against a home team with fresh legs and a loud building, the next problem shows up fast. The meth. But the numbers did more than tell a story. They outlined a collapse possession by possession. 34.3% shooting can be survived if your possessions are clean. 7 for 30 from deep can be survived if the ball touches the paint and the free throw line. 22 turnovers can be survived if most are dead ball.
That had to have been one of, if not the most embarrassing loss of the season for the Indiana Fever so far. We lost to the Atlanta Dream earlier in the season, 77-58. We lost to the Valkyrie earlier in the season, 80-61. And tonight, against the Phoenix Mercury, we lose 95-60. Does this team practice? What I saw tonight looked like what I saw a month ago. Looked what I saw 3 weeks ago. Absolutely no offensive game plan. I thought this motion offense is when it's nobody's night, night in and night out. Everybody's allowed to have a night. If Kelsey Mitchell doesn't play well, it needs miraculous efforts from the rest of the team to pick this up. Sophie Cunningham played great tonight. Kelsey Mitchell had a bad game. Bad game. Where's everybody else?
Indiana got the worst version of all three. Phoenix turned mistakes into 42 points. That is not variance. That is a conveyor belt. Live ball giveaways a double pain. You lose a shot, then lose your defensive shape. Phoenix ran 2-on-1s and 3-on-2s, while Indiana trailed and pointed. The shot profile decayed as frustration climbed. Early clock pull-ups replaced inside-out looks. Bailout heaves replaced purposeful paint touches. Every bad look fed a fast break. Every fast break fed the crowd. When your worst possessions fuel their best possessions, the math tilts and the mood follows. Numbers also hide something else. Body language, second efforts. Who gets to the ball first when it takes a funny bounce? That part decided second quarter and beyond. Rebounding is honesty. Phoenix won it 44-32 and won the moments inside those numbers. Long misses off Indiana's threes fell to Mercury guards who were already moving. Wings crashed from the corners and tipped the ball twice before grabbing it. Big sealed early and carved space.
You know, it was, yeah, I don't know, emotions are kind of high. Honestly, it's just been a journey to get back to just being happy playing basketball again. Yeah, I'm just, the joy, trying to find that. For a minute, basketball was kind of like off the radar for me a little bit. I didn't know if I loved it anymore. Like, I had a long conversation with Alyssa. So just to feel that again, feel that energy, feel this from that building was just amazing. And I feel like it was a game that I needed to, you know, remind me, like, I love this.
Indiana boxed out once, then watch the second bounce. Those micro choices stack up. When one team gets 2 or 3 looks, while the other goes one and done, the game stops being clever and becomes cruel. The honesty showed in faces. You could see the wince after a second chance 3. You could feel the sag after a loose ball layup beat a perfect first possession of defense. This is where identity is tested. Do you double down on details or try to shoot your way out? Indiana needed a spark that played like a plan. One player gave it to them, and she did it by refusing to match the chaos. But edge only matters when it meets execution. Enter Sophie. Sophie walked back into Phoenix with a calm challenge. She hunted space rather than forcing drama. Catch, rise, splash. Shot selection that said trust or work. She sprinted lanes even when she did not touch the ball, stretching the defense and creating driving alleys for others. She dug down on drivers, then recovered to contest kick-out threes. She communicated through screens so the next rotation arrived on time. 18 points reads like production. The way she carried possessions read like leadership. Sophie's edge was not trash talk, it was clarity. Compete on each action. Ignore the theater, find the next good look. When Phoenix stared...
For sure. I mean, it sucks, right? You don't ever want to see anyone be injured on any team. I feel like there's been a lot of injuries this year in the W, harsh ones, I think. And, you know, it's just another one. And Sid is still the heartbeat of our team. She's going to be okay. Our team's going to be okay. And, again, it's just another hurdle that we're going to have to get over.
I like DB because, like, DB was one of my vets when I was in Phoenix. And then we gathered here into Indiana. And, like, it was kind of a surprise that she was signed to Indiana anyway. And so we'll take her in a heartbeat. Like, she's a Hall of Famer. She's a hell of a basketball player, can score from anywhere on the court.
But Sophie Cunningham was about to drop some truth bombs that would put this entire situation in perfect perspective.
Did you see that when DB came back and played for us, that they got mad that our fan base was booing her?
She blinked exactly 0 times. That steadiness broadcast standards without words. But standards bend when bodies fall. In minutes, Indiana's rotation shifted from thin to thinner, and when depth gets hit, the entire script changes. Sydney Colson's left knee, Ari McDonald's right foot, 2 exits that cut into handling, pace, and organization. Against a pressure defense, every clean initiation is gold. With 2 guards down, entry passes got risky and sets got late. Finishers were asked to initiate. Spacers were asked to break pressure. That is a lot to ask on the road.
Sophie Cunningham making her return to Phoenix, and it seems as if nobody on our team other than Sophie Cunningham felt any type of emotional connection to this game. Tawana Bonner just got done doing your team absolutely dirty. You guys escape with a victory when they come to Indiana, and you wipe your hands of it like it's all over and finished with. No, it goes both ways. You don't think we want to beat her on her home court? You don't think we want to get a W for Sophie Cunningham, making her return to the team that she spent her whole entire career with up until this point?
While the scoreboard drifts the wrong way, the human side landed even harder. Nothing lowers a huddle like watching a teammate limp off. Indiana checked on them, regrouped, and kept talking. The effort did not evaporate. The bandwidth did. Phoenix sensed it and raised the heat. That is what veteran teams do at home. They turn your pain into their push. Into that vacuum stepped the loudest figure of the night. She had the ball, the buckets, and a whole lot to say without saying much. Bonner scored 23 and brought heat on both ends. Quick hands for a runway steal. Bull-ups with a little extra hold on the follow-through. Stays after makes. Words aimed at the bench. This is rivalry fuel, and a building drinks it every time. Teammates feel taller when one of their leaders sets the temperature. There is nothing wrong with fire. The question is what the fire cooks. Did it cook clean execution or a night of performance? Phoenix got the win, so that
Was there explanation when it happened? No. Not even privately? Yeah, I mean, okay. That's tough. And, yeah, okay. Well, I did say what? Unless you leave on some fuck you type shit, and that's what that is, so.
I doubt DeWanna Bonner had any idea that how dirty she did her teammates on her way out of Indiana would ever come out to light. But Sophie Cunningham said, hold my beer. I got a podcast. I got this platform. I'm going to speak my mind. I'm not going to toe the company line. I'm not going to protect narratives. I'm not going to follow agendas. I'm going to tell you how it all went down. And DeWanna Bonner disappeared like a ghost.
theater's easy to love. Yet the show sat on top of a deeper story that only gets clear after the microphones come on. Because effort, emotion, and celebration are part of the game, but they do not replace the standard that keeps a locker room tight. And that standard came into focus when two post-game rooms sounded like two different sports. Phoenix sounded like a team that had circled the calendar. Words about joy, edge, rediscovery. Smiles that read like relief and release. Indiana sounded like a group taking inventory. Who's healthy? Where did our spacing break? How do we cut 22 turnovers to 12? The vibes were not better. They were sturdier. One room pointed to the scoreboard. The other pointed to the mirror. Then Sophie widened the frame and spoke to something bigger than box scores and bravado. She described the simple professional norm that any veteran knows. Leave if you must, but do not vanish. Inform the room. Respect the people who work beside you. It was not a grenade. It was a guideline. That is when this night stopped being a revenge narrative and became a values check. On a podcast, Sophie did two careful things at once. She praised Bonner's resume and skill. Then she drew a line round the exit. Mid-season departures happen. Contracts, fit, life, all of it. What does not have to happen is silence. A short message to the locker room closes a loop, preserves trust, and keeps relationships from souring. According to Sophie, that text never came. No heads up.
Can you see that? DeWanna Bonner hit her first three-point shot in about 6 months and runs down the floor after losing her starting spot to Lexi Hull. Runs down the floor and calls Lexi Hull a bomb to her face. DeWanna Bonner is out here calling Lexi Hull a bomb to her face.
Like, I'm still rooting for her. Like, I want her to end her career and be happy. But I also think that, like, it's okay to be professional about it. And, like, send a text to your teammates. Send a text and be like, hey, like, love you guys. Or you don't even have to say love you guys. Just like, hey, sorry this didn't work out. Good luck. Da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? Like, there's a way to handle that, I think.
No goodbye, just absence. This is not gossip. It is culture maintenance. You can respect someone's game and still expect adult communication. That's why her comments hit. They were not insults. They were expectations. Standards travel, theater fades. When a veteran disappears without a word, the silence gets louder than any stare down on the court. It changes how people remember your exit, and it reframes a so-called statement game as something else entirely, which raises a real question. Was that night growth or just a replay with better lighting? Redemption is about evolution. Replay is about reenacting familiar beats with the volume turned up. Bonner's shot making was real. So was the edge. Yet the presentation looked like a highlight reel stitched to an unresolved exit. Meanwhile, Sophie's A team looked smaller on the scoreboard and larger in the room. She kept the work, she kept teammates at the center. She modeled how to compete hard without making the night about anything other than the next possession. That contrast matters when the noise dies. Fans
And Steph, obviously, Sid had that injury and Ari left, I think, in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Just what's the status of?
Well, it's Sid's left knee, Ari's right foot, and we'll get some more evaluation when we get home tomorrow and see where we are.
I don't believe in booing former players unless they left on like some you type shit.
She's towards the end of her career, so like she deserves her flowers. She deserves to be happy. But I also think that if you're gonna leave, like you're gonna have to expect getting booed.
remember swagger. Teammates remember respect. Coaches remember who followed the plan when it was easiest to improvise. If you want the label redemption, it has to look like growth in how you handle the people around you. Otherwise is a replay. It sells tonight and ages poorly. Identity is not forged by speeches. It is revealed in small acts. Indiana showed theirs when the game was already gone. Even without Caitlin Clark, this core has tells. They huddle around injuries. They pull the next player closer. They challenge without tearing down. Lexi Hull stared back without escalating and kept playing. That is spine. It shows up in boring places viewers often miss. Sprinting back after bad misses. Cracking back to help bigs on the glass. Cutting hard even when the play's a decoy. These habits don't trend on social, but they keep a team from breaking when the scoreboard stings. The fix list is clear. Cleaner first actions so the second and third options still live. 2-foot stops in the lane instead of off-balance floaters. Stronger jump stops against pressure to protect the pass. Meet the ball on entries so defenders cannot jump the route. Share the paint touches and you share the shot quality. Those tweaks raise the floor fast. The ceiling lifts when gravity returns, which brings us to the piece that changes geometry, cadence, and calm the second she checks in. When Caitlin Clark returns, the floor stretches. Defenses cannot sit in gaps and play the lanes when 28-foot pull-ups are live. That stretch reopens pocket passes to rollers and skips to the weak side shooter. More important is cadence. A primary initiator gets you into your first action with time to spare. So counters are still available.
Sobley, tough shot. Wasn't square, and here comes Indiana. Cunningham, another three. Oh my. Look at Bonner. And Cunningham's kind of got that innocent who me grin going, and nobody's buying it.
Wow, what a steal by Bonner, stepping right into it. And Sophie knows that doesn't want to create anything more. A little holding on.
That means fewer forced late clock threes and more rhythm catch and shoot looks for Kelsey Mitchell and co. Roll clarity follows. Spacers get to space. Finishers get to finish. Ball security improves because reads happen one beat earlier. You do not erase a 95-60 loss by inserting one player. You do change the difficulty level of every teammate's job. That is how a team reclaims its identity, not only by talent, but by tempo and trust. Clark's return does not fix the turnover flood alone. It quiets it by restoring order. Even with that, one lesson from Phoenix should be pinned to the whiteboard. It costs 30 seconds and it buys years of respect. Teams survive slumps and trades. They do not forget exits. A brief message to the group keeps respect intact and anxiety low. It says the work mattered and the relationships mattered too. Sophie's remarks were not a shot. They were a reminder. If you leave, leave like a pro. If you stay, stay with purpose. That little stand-in stops a season from turning into sideshows. It keeps rivalry heat inside the lines, not of the group chat. Indiana failed to execute in Phoenix. They did not fail to care. That's why this night can become leverage rather than a label. Tighten passing windows. Value the ball. Dominate effort stats that travel in any arena. Keep Sophie's calm edge as the baseline. Let Clark's gravity reset timing. And let the group stand and swallow the noise the next time the temperature rises. Because there will be a next time. and it will be loud. 2 stories played out in Phoenix. One was loud, full of stairs, struts, and a victory lap. The other was quiet, full of care for injured teammates, hard running, and a leader who competed without theatrics. The final score crowned the loud story for a night. The long season often rewards the quiet one. Indiana's checklist is simple and brutal. Cut 22 turnovers to 12. Win first quarters with 1 automatic action you can hit in your sleep. Rebound like every possession decides the next run. Give Kelsey early rhythm touches. Keep Sophie in flow without asking her to rescue chaos. Let Clark's return set cadence so everyone's job gets easier. And protect the standard that outlasts any one performance. If you are riding with that standard, drop Spicy Sophie in the comments so the algorithm knows where you stand. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications to catch the rematch chapter. Because this story is not finished. It just found its voice.